Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Kylie Buckner. Kylie is doing some amazing work, so I'm excited to have her on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. The Unlock Wellness podcast is now on patreon.com. Patreon is an amazing site that allows you to support your favorite podcasts. You can learn more by going to patreon.com/Dr. Casey Johnson. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drkaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, also be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which supplies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Kylie Buckner. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Kylie Buckner. Kylie is a nurse, yoga instructor, and has a large focus on assisting pregnant women who want to adopt a plant-based diet. She is also part of the Mastering Diabetes team and is married to Dr. Cyrus Kambata, who was also a past podcast guest on episode 117. So be sure to go back and check out that episode, which also included Robbie Barbero. And they're both amazing, so be sure to go check it out. But I'm extremely excited to have Kylie on the show to share her story and just all of the amazing work that she's doing. So Kylie, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, and before we dive into everything that you're working on, why don't you start with your backstory, where you're from and what your own personal health and wellness looked like growing up?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from the East Coast in Pennsylvania, and I grew up there in a pretty small town, and we actually had a lot of farms in our area, so there was often a lot of fresh produce and fresh foods available to us. And I was actually brought up with limited sugar access. My mom was really focused on sugar and hidden sugars, so there was sort of this awareness of what we were eating as I was growing up. And it was really important to her to, feed us meals that she prepared. So there wasn't a lot of exposure to, a lot of fast foods and things like that. So we also didn't have a lot of those types of restaurants available to us. So, I was actually very, very lucky in that sense that I was sort of brought up with some awareness of the food that I was eating. And, I now appreciate that much more now that I'm, doing some of the work I'm doing now. It really helped me make my transition that much easier. But, we were still fed a pretty standard diet of, there was meat and cheese, a lot of dairy. There was a lot of farms around us. So that was very abundant too. And throughout my life, I also actually had some pretty bad GI complications. I had, as it turns out, as I got into my adult years, I learned I had IBS, and I never really understood it. And so all throughout my life, I was sort of having this background sort of issues like eczema and some acne and some little things going on, but I never really had any issues with my weight, or I never had a diagnosis of anything that sort of made me say oh, I should change something. It was just sort of this underlying stuff that I didn't really understand. And I ended up going to nursing school, and I became a nurse. And as a nurse, I went into nursing, with this idea of wellness and health promotion, and really wanting to help people become healthy. And I ended up spending a lot of my career as a nurse in the hospital in neonatal intensive care nursing. And there's nutrition discussion every day, because when you're taking care of premature babies, we talk about nutrition. Talk about how we're going to ensure that these small babies are getting adequate nutrition. So there's sort of like this little underlying like nutrition conversation happening, and learning a lot about all these different macronutrients and things like that. And, again, like kind of when I look back, I think about all these little ties to nutrition in my life. And it wasn't until it was about 2011 when I had some friends who were actually exploring a plant-based diet, and they were reading the China study, and they handed me the book, and they were like, I really think you'd like this. Like, do you want to check it out? And I already, I thought I was eating a really healthy diet. It was a lot of fresh foods, kind of similar to how I grew up, but still have a lot of meat, cheeses in it, some dairy. And I read the China study, and I just remember like things just I was just like, this just makes so much sense.
That's amazing.
And I was still working in this mother baby world and taking care of women who had health complications during pregnancy. And sometimes that's what led them towards a premature delivery. And I just remember thinking at the time, like, how is all of healthcare not reading this book and like applying this, this plant-based nutrition? Like it really was, I remember thinking as a nurse, I'm very confused. Why is nobody like just putting this in all of the units in the hospital, this book?
Right. I think that's why so many people get like almost turn like angry vegan, because like, why doesn't everybody apply this? Like or at least why isn't it being taught more if
Absolutely.
There's so much data backing it up?
For sure. Yeah. That was the thing, I was, and in the profession of nursing, one thing that's really significant is that we are taught to follow the evidence, follow the science. And when I was in grad school, we did a lot of evidence-based research. And that was one of the things that really jumped out at me about the China study in particular, was just how strong the evidence was, that science piece of it. And so I was actually going through a really big transition in my life at that point also. And so as I was learning more about how to become vegan and how to become plant-based, how to make this transition, I had some help with my friends that were also were also making this transition as well, which was awesome. But I kind of just gradually started making changes in my diet, and I started taking food out. And, by the time 5 or 6 months rolled by, I was like, oh, I'm officially no longer eating any animal protein or animal products. So it was actually pretty easy in that way. I just sort of did this very slow elimination.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was really supportive for me to do something really healthy to support myself in a time where my life was actually going into another direction. And so it was mid 2012 that I actually moved to California. And I'm a nurse, so I took a travel nursing job and like had this opportunity to go and explore a little bit. And I ended up in San Francisco. And from where I was living on the East Coast, it was when I would talk about what I was eating, it was very confusing for people.
Right. I grew up in West Virginia, so pretty similar. Oh, yeah. I understand.
Yeah. So it was very difficult. And I was like trying to navigate this. I was trying to explain to people I was eating differently, and not everybody understood it. And I was working in a hospital with a lot of doctors and nurses. And, I remember hearing a lot of very negative feedback from the people I was working with and people I'd worked with for many, many years. And I remember feeling like, wow, our healthcare system, there's a lot of barriers around this, and that was my initial impression, was even the people I felt close to in healthcare seemed very against this process, for me. And it was a personal choice for myself. It was very, I just wanted to achieve the best health I could.
Right.
So then I moved to California, where the choices got much easier. The conversations got much easier. It was definitely there would still be conversation about it, but it wasn't as, definitely in California, it definitely felt much easier to maintain a diet that was maybe not the mainstream way of eating.
And now it's just, it's so normal there. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Because what year was that when you first moved?
That was 2012. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, even now, I feel like there's new plant-based restaurants popping up over there, just left and right now,
totally.
Especially.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So where did it kind of go once you moved there? Obviously, there's a whole lot more options, a lot more resources, and probably a lot more people to kind of have that community with, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and actually pretty soon after I moved there, I met Cyrus. And, when we first met, I remember him telling me he was living with type 1 diabetes. And then he told me how much fruit he ate. And I was, shocked. I was amazed. I was like, what are you telling me? Because again, my sort of traditional nursing background we had been taught that, when you live with diabetes, you can't eat carbohydrate. You can't eat, it's not good. It makes you have to use more insulin, and it makes your blood glucose go high. So he was just filling me in on what he had learned for himself. And he had just finished his studies, his PhD program. So I was just completely fascinated by the whole thing. And, we both were kind of like, I told him I was also, vegan and exploring this for my health. And I was explaining to him the resources that I was looking at, like the China study and, all these other resources. And it was a really great connection for us. Mm-hmm. And then he was helping me kind of understand the nutrition that I was getting. So, the first couple of months that I was, vegan, I would say probably my diet wasn't as nutritious. Like, it's definitely evolved over time,
Right. So, a lot of we like a lot of the processed stuff at first, the easier things, and then what was the major changes? Like, did you start adding in more fruit, or what worked best for you?
I would say nutrition labels, reading nutrition labels, like really understanding what sugar means. Like he definitely, we teach that in our program as well. Like, that was a key piece, the salt and the sugar and the oil, all of those things added in. And when you start reading nutrition labels and really seeing what's being added to processed foods, it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. So, and having, somebody to explore this with made it much more fun. It was like, let's try making this and not use the oil and not use the salt. So that made the process more fun for sure. And then I would say, one of the things I really learned from him too, in that first year I was still navigating it, was how did my body feel, and as a yogi, I was very connected to my body and my sort of movement and my breath and all of these things. But he really helped me connect the dots on like, well, how are you feeling? Because, like I said, I was living with some digestive discomfort and some skin issues for many, many years. And I started noticing these things slowly improving, so I believe that I had a level of inflammation that, was underlying some of these things that now, I don't really worry about, I don't have to deal with anymore. And, it took time for that process to unfold and move through. But it was something that, learning to, listen to your body, connect those dots about, okay, well, what did it feel like when you ate that food that was high in oil or high in sugar or something? How do you connect those dots? So, it was he was a really great person to have on my side as I was like learning this whole process to begin with and learning more and more about nutrition.
Yeah, I think it's all about, like you were saying, it's all about the body awareness. I mean, anything that you're doing, whether that's what you're eating or the fitness you're doing, like, not every form of fitness is meant for every kind of person. So it's just being super aware of yourself and realizing it's not cookie cutter. Hey, as far as yoga, like, when did you start being an instructor for that?
Oh, so I completed my teacher training in San Francisco in 2016. So, I'd been practicing, I'd had a pretty regular practice prior to moving to California. And then in San Francisco, the yoga community there is just amazing. So I really leaned into that as I was, in that space of some healing and just learning really to love my life and learning more about presence and about connection. And I loved the yoga community in San Francisco. And I ended up following this one really phenomenal teacher, and she was offering a teacher training. And I completed my training in 2016. And it was a really great connection for me because with my nursing background, especially because of this whole idea of this mind-body connection, understanding how we're feeling and trusting in that and leaning into maybe even sometimes some discomfort and understanding where the boundaries fit in. And, our yoga practice is very much, when you're on the mat practicing, it's exploring those boundaries. And I think that that's really applicable to our everyday life. And once we're off the mat, understanding how to set and hold boundaries for ourselves, and also understanding what our body is feeling and how to navigate that.
I love that. No, it's very well said, and 100% agree. And Kylie, for you, I mean, you have a very, very big interest in helping pregnant women kind of, switch into a plant-based way of eating. Mm-hmm. And there's, like we were talking about before we started recording, like there's not a whole lot of information out there. And I think there's a lot of fear that goes behind that as well. And I get it. Like, I've been pregnant and I understand like there are a lot of things that can scare you or, but yeah, so I think it's a really important topic, and I'm glad that you're working on putting a lot more information out there. So how did that become an interest for you? I mean, just because you just had that background and kind of came to you one day, like I'm into this, but there's not a whole lot available.
Yeah, I mean, my nursing, while I was working in the hospital setting, and I spent time also in outpatient OBGYN clinic. I spent almost 18 years working as a nurse in that type of a setting. And I spent years in management, at bedside nursing, as an educator. So I've really explored the healthcare system from so many different angles. And, one of the things that really, I mean, I love the mother-baby experience. That's it's a special time, and it's something that I've really connected with through my nursing practice. And so, and having been a NICU nurse and seeing, sort of these, I guess, when you look at the health of and the wellness of a mother who's pregnant and offering nutrition to their growing baby, to me, it just makes sense to offer pregnant women the healthiest of diets and most nutritious diets, because their bodies are providing everything for their baby. And not only that, but for their own well-being. I mean, we have so many women that are living with, they get diagnosed with things like gestational diabetes and hypertension, and, so many conditions are diagnosed during pregnancy. And a lot of these things are actually, what I'm finding, what I'm learning more and more about, is that they're really connected to the root of insulin resistance. And so if that's something that we can address at the bottom and through a plant-based diet, then how many more lives are going to be impacted by that? Not just the mother's life, but the baby's life.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, Kylie, because, people will be kind of like iffy if they want to go plant-based while they're pregnant. But you have to look at the average diet of an American pregnant woman. It's not great. There's a lot of junk food, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I feel like a majority of women that are pregnant, not all, but a large portion, kind of once they're pregnant, develop like this mentality of, I need to eat so many more calories, and it doesn't matter what I eat because I'm hungry and the baby needs it. Or maybe you're not even hungry, but when you tell yourself that and that junk food's okay, you're going to eat more of it. And when, actually, I mean, I know you and I both know, like, really the calorie increase isn't that much more. And obviously it's not true that you can just eat what you want. And then, there's just so many negative things that can happen by having that mentality. And then obviously, like you said, you're developing a baby with the food that you take in. So yeah, no, I just think it's so interesting, the mentality of, I can eat what I want when I'm pregnant because I can't, I just can, you know what I mean? I just think it's crazy.
Well, and that's so, just to kind of like back up a little bit, one of the reasons that I've actually taken a bigger interest recently is that in our program, we have a lot of women that are in our coaching program for the purpose of reversing their insulin resistance. Maybe they have type 2 diabetes or, PCOS, or they have something that brought them to our program, and maybe they're exploring pregnancy, or they want to conceive, or they are pregnant. And they have a lot of questions for us about, is this still an okay thing? Can I still eat plant-based? And even for myself, exploring potential pregnancy, like that to me is a big question. Like, I've been plant-based now for so many years. I wouldn't change anything about my diet at this point. So it got me really curious, like where's the information on this, and why are we not seeing more about it, about having a healthy plant-based pregnancy?
Right. What are some of the, I guess, the kind of the biggest myth busters that you're coming across as you're doing your research?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. So, well, the first one, like you just brought up, was about calories and pregnancy, and sort of you sort of have this unlimited options of eating. And, one of the, I think there's that misconception, like I'm eating for two, you hear that thrown around a lot, or, and a lot of women do experience cravings for things, and that's totally normal. But in the first trimester of pregnancy, for the first 13 weeks, most women do not need any additional calories. Yeah. Our bodies are really, really good at storing nutrition. And for good part of that time, the growing baby doesn't actually even get anything from the mother's body. So there's actually no additional calories needed during the first trimester for most women. And there are some circumstances where there might be, and that's usually for women who are underweight going into pregnancy. Mm-hmm. But for most women, there's no additional increase needed. And in the second trimester, weeks 14 to 26 or 27, you need about 350 calories more a day. Right. And I always like to say that's about 3 bananas worth of calories. Like, it's not that many more, it's not that much food, actually. And if you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, well, if I just eat a banana a couple times a day, then I'm going to give my baby not only the calories that I'm needing, but also some phenomenal nutrition from a piece of fruit. And then the third trimester and beyond, and that's includes the time during breastfeeding, if you do choose to breastfeed, that it would be closer to 500 calories extra a day. So actually you need more calories and more energy in your body to produce breast milk and to lactate. So, and I think that's another misconception, that you need more energy, more calories during pregnancy. And actually the majority of your calories are going to come in when you're feeding your baby, if you're making breast milk. So
yeah, that's definitely an exhausting time. So I agree with that. 100%.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's crazy. And then not to mention, Kylie, the effects afterwards, not just with breastfeeding, but not like with just the mom with breastfeeding, because obviously that takes more energy, but what you're still taking in, that's still going directly to the baby through the breast milk. So it's just, it's so important, and it's going to affect not only your baby's immune system, but also your own immune system, and how quickly you bounce back to, a normal weight, hormone balance, your energy, because I feel like now more than ever, we're seeing so much like postpartum depression, and it's, it's really hard, because I understand a lot of women really deal with this, and it's awful. And, so I think a lot of that can be helped just by having better hormone balance, better weight loss after the fact, which obviously a plant-based diet is going to help you get there a lot faster.
For sure. Well, and, as far as eating more food, the one thing about a plant-based diet is that if you are eating if you're eating your food from whole plants, you can eat an abundance of them. You can So, the calorie density is so different that, if you're somebody who is feeling hungry and wants to eat, a plant-based diet is ideal, because you can eat as much as you want. And all you're going to be doing is adding more and more nutrition into your body, which is, the phenomenal part about eating, especially fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes. It's just a phenomenal, it's fun. You get to eat what you want.
Yep. It gives you more freedom. Cause by any means, like Kylie and I aren't telling you, like, if you're pregnant to like count calories and like, be super restrictive. It's not about that. But if you're putting the right things in, like, you can eat what you want. And that's kind of, it is freeing, and it takes a lot of stress off of it, and you don't have to worry as much. So
true.
It's very cool to be able to eat what you want, and your health be even more abundant than it was. Like, for, like I was telling you before too, Kylie, I went plant-based about 2 months after I had our daughter, and it was cool because it just helped me so quickly. Like, right after I had her, I had mastitis. And it's awful. Like, I don't wish it on anybody. Like, the worst thing, and it's awful. But I was dealing with that for a few months, and I had been researching plant-based, decided one day after it was just a miserable day of just painful breastfeeding. I felt sick. Like, it was just awful. I was just like, I was sitting there with my husband. I'm like, I'm going to cut out dairy. I need to decrease inflammation, but if I cut out dairy, I'm cutting out meat too. And that was it. Like, that was it. I started there, right there. And I don't think I had any more flare-ups after that. And like the pregnancy weight came off so fast, and then some. Like, the weight that I wanted to lose before I was pregnant came off even after that. So it was just like, It was so amazing. And not to mention just the health benefits I've seen from our daughter. Like, she eats this way now. She's almost 3. never sick. Like she's just amazing. Her energy is just so high. Like it's just cool seeing how quickly it can have a positive effect on not only me, but her. And just like, it's just really, really amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. And the fact that she's like never sick. I mean, that's, I think,
oh no,
are, kind of live in fear of a lot. It's like, oh, it's, sanitize everything. And, to think that, with the nutrition that you're getting from your food, that you could potentially reduce, some of that illness is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And like, and so what are you, with what you're doing with Mastering Diabetes? So are you going to have like a separate section for gestational diabetes? Because I think it would be a cool addition.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, we are. It is in the works. Cool. So we're kind of, we have a couple of really cool things that we're hoping to be able to start launching soon, and maybe in early 2019. But I'm basically doing a lot of this sort of background work right now on gestational diabetes, women living with diabetes who are, pregnant and wanting to maintain plant-based pregnancy, women who, like I just wrote an article on PCOS, and we're going to be publishing that soon because PCOS is a very important women's health topic. And, there's a lot of misinformation around PCOS. So I would say there's going to be more to come from Mastering Diabetes. Because, one of the things about Mastering Diabetes that I've really come to appreciate is that we kind of take that next step down, which is that level, that insulin resistance. We talk about insulin resistance all the time. And, that's kind of the root of, gestational diabetes and type 2 diabetes and heart disease and hypertension. So when you can dig down a little bit deeper and get to that next level and really understand what's happening inside your body, then all of these things can really fall into place and resolve. And, we do that by using food as food as medicine and food as a nutritional source to heal your body. And it's been amazing. The transformations that I've seen in the past year. So I've been working primarily with Mastering Diabetes for the last year. Obviously I was involved with it as it was growing, but, now I'm actually working directly with Mastering Diabetes every day. And the transformations are phenomenal. And just watching the way that people's bodies respond when you start adding in whole, fresh foods, fruits, vegetables, grains, beans. That's pretty much the premise of our program. And we help people navigate that transition. So, even if you don't have, I think back all the time about when I was going through that transition, and I think, gosh, I wish there had been a program to teach me, how do I shop in the grocery store, and how do I, how do I eat at a restaurant, and what do I ask for? And so these are the conversations that we're having every day. And, adding the pregnancy piece in, I think, is going to really support a lot of women who are looking for information on gestational diabetes and how to keep themselves and their growing baby as healthy as possible until they deliver.
I love that. No, and guys, if you guys are listening, definitely go check out Mastering Diabetes. They have, like she was talking about, they have a program that you can do that's kind of linked to a community as well. So you always have support. And then they also have a podcast where they talk to just all kinds, from health professionals to, success stories come on there too, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And actually I was on there a while back too. I don't know what episode it was.
Yeah.
But they're doing some really amazing work. So, go check them out and give them a follow, like on social media as well. And, or if you know anybody that has diabetes, send them that way, because it's just so full of research and amazing stories. So I love it. Kylie, you're also doing more writing with the pregnancy side as well, right? Like, are you working on like a resource book, or what are you kind of working on as far as just like writing, making content to put out there to help people?
Yeah. So I'm working on a website.
Awesome.
It's taking me a little longer to launch. I don't have a lot of experience with that.
So you're like on university YouTube right now?
Yeah, actually, and I would love that resource. I need like all the help I can get right now. So I am trying to, I'm basically writing some content that I'd like. I actually have a domain called myplantbasedpregnancy.com.
Awesome.
And so we bought that, and it's sort of just sitting there in cyberspace at the moment until we can actually put some content in there and, and make it someplace where people can go for some how-tos, I'm very much like, I'm a checklist person. And I think from being in healthcare for so long, like checklists help save people's lives. We use checklists to make sure that we are accountable for what we do. And they build accountability. They help you stay on point, on focus. So, I kind of envision some information plus some like, here's some how-tos, how to talk with your doctor about this, how to log your food. That's another kind of really important topic in, I think a lot of women wonder, well, how do I know I'm getting enough nutrition? Like I went to my OB visit and I got a prescription for a prenatal vitamin, and I was told not to eat certain foods. Like there's usually some conversation around nutrition or food, but it's usually about things to avoid, avoiding alcohol and avoiding certain foods during pregnancy. But I wouldn't say that most OBs have the resources to talk about how you could actually get the nutrients that you need during pregnancy from your food.
Right.
So one thing that I just think is such a phenomenal tool is to start logging your food. And I don't know if you've ever practiced with food logging before.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but I need to, because every time that I do, it is eye-opening, especially when you start. It's really great to do if you feel like, when you kind of feel like you're getting off track a little bit. I know we're both plant-based, but I mean, even you can be plant-based and get off track a little bit. Like those Beyond Burgers start slipping in a little bit more, But I mean, and I bought some today, so no, don't judge me.
No judging.
Yeah, no judging. No, but I mean, it's easy to get off track sometime when you get busy, and then like that doesn't help with stress at all. So I think food logging is great.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, it's a tool that we promote in our program as well. And so I've been talking about it. So finally, back in the spring, I was like, well, let me start logging I hadn't done it. I was like, oh, let me do it. So I started logging my food, and I was blown away by what I saw, because I eat a diet that's primarily fruits and vegetables during the day and grains and legumes. First of all, when it comes to pregnancy, the first thing that they tell you is folic acid. You need folic acid, right? Because folate is a nutrient that comes, it's a mineral that comes in plants. It comes in briefly lean vegetables and fruits. And it helps prevent birth defects in growing babies. And it's really important at the beginning of pregnancy. Well, what I found was on any given day, I was getting like 300% over the recommended limit of folate from my food. And the wonderful thing about that is that when you are given a supplement of folic acid, it's not absorbed as well as the way that folate actually is absorbed inside your body. So, folic acid is the synthetic version of folate. So, and it's important that, if you don't know if you're getting enough folate, then it's very important to take folic acid. But what I learned was I'm getting way more than what the daily recommendations are for folate. So even during pregnancy. So I was really it opened my eyes to certain vitamins and minerals that are, again, where am I maybe a little deficient? Where is there something that I might actually need to talk to my doctor about? Maybe I'm not getting enough calcium. Okay, how do I meet my calcium needs without adding dairy products in? So food logging helps you understand what you're eating so that you can then go have an informed conversation with your physician. Yeah. And, because supplements are important if you're deficient in something or if you're not meeting that nutrient. So, this isn't we don't need supplements conversation, because if you're deficient in something, then it might be important for you to take that. And that's where, but having that information available first to go have that informed conversation with your physician is just, I think that's a really empowering tool to have in your tool belt when you're either approaching pregnancy or maybe considering pregnancy, preconception time, or if you find yourself, if you are pregnant.
No, I 100% agree with that. And whenever you do your food logs, do you use like an app that kind of breaks down your nutrients? What app do you like to use?
Chronometer.
I just saw that. I saw somebody post that on their Instagram story. I'm going to check it out. So
it's awesome. They have a couple different versions. But you can, change the settings. You can make your own recipes. So if there's like a recipe that you're making often so that you don't have to put in each individual ingredient, you can create recipes really easily. They are wonderful. It's a wonderful app, and you can add in your fitness and, your hydration and whatever. And it tells you it's just a full breakdown of all minerals, vitamins, your macronutrients. And that was another area I was really surprised was with my macronutrients. I think a lot of people often go to the protein conversation.
Right.
And during pregnancy, protein needs do increase slightly. But I found that from what I was logging in my regular diet, just my regular average day's worth of food, I was meeting the recommendations for any stage of pregnancy with my protein.
That's
from plants.
Yeah, no, you do hear that a lot. And, like I was saying, I wasn't plant-based till that second month after pregnancy, but I think shakes saved me, but I was using a plant-based powder at that point. Like a raw, like whole food, like powder. Sure. So I think that really helped me a lot at that point. But I was also the first trimester, I was very, very sick. The first trimester, I think I lost 10 pounds because I was so sick. Yeah. And so shakes kind of saved me. But at the same point, I really wasn't eating a whole lot because I was so sick. So the shakes probably just kept me kind of in balance. So, but the protein thing, you do hear that a lot. Do you think that the lack, if somebody is lacking protein, that causes increased sickness? Because that's something that I don't know if you've come across that in your research. You always kind of hear that. I honestly don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, we've addressed that question from time to time, and really, severe protein deficiencies. Okay. And we're talking about malnourishment.
Gotcha.
That can be very dangerous for sure. What the recommendations for protein is actually weight-based. So it's 0.3 grams per pound of weight. So is a really good jumping off point for your protein needs. And that's of your ideal weight, your ideal body weight. So you first have to kind of calculate what your ideal body weight is and then go into that calculation. And for most women, the actual protein needs, non-pregnant, is about somewhere between 38 to 45 grams per day.
Yeah.
And for men, it's a little bit more. But during pregnancy, the protein needs do increase. But most days I'm averaging 48 to 60 grams of protein from a lot of it's from beans, a lot of it from, whole vegetables, fruits have protein. All of these foods that we're eating that are whole foods have protein. They have carbohydrate, fat, and protein. And so once you start logging that and seeing just how many grams of protein you get in a day, I can't think of a day when I've logged my food that I haven't at least been at that minimum value. And then I know now that if I add a cup of beans, I'm going to bump that right up.
So. Exactly. And as just not speaking on pregnancy at all, but just as a non-pregnant society, we consume way too much protein. And I think once I'm sure you notice this too, Kylie, it's once you cut it down, you feel so much better and the weight comes up a whole lot faster.
So true. So true. Yeah.
No, that's super interesting though. I'm excited for your website though. I think you're going to put out a lot of content that's really going to help a lot of people and a lot of moms, because like you said, that information is not as available as it should be, especially with even the stuff that's available, it's not super researched influence. It's more just kind of like an opinionated blog, which is cool too. But I love how research focused you are. And really you and Dr. Cyrus do an amazing job at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, so I'm excited for you, Kylie. And is there anything else that you're working on in the future that you just want to put out there and share with people, or just continue to get your site up and running, work on mastering diabetes and writing?
Yeah, I'm working on those two things primarily. I'm also introducing a coaching program that is geared towards the first few days and few weeks after pregnancy, after birth, because a lot of, I spend a lot of time again with women in that time frame and parents in that time frame, new parents. And, it's kind of it ends up what I envision this being. And I'm actually working with my first official client, starting soon. We're going to be bringing my nursing background and my yogi background together a little bit, because
I love it.
A lot of, mindfulness techniques, a lot of things to stay present and focused on where you are with that process and that transition. I'm really passionate about mindful transitions in general, and that transition of birthing your baby to now being this parent to this new person is a huge transition. And, I feel like I would love to see so much more time spent in that space. So I'm working on that too. We've got quite a few things going on here. So
I love that. No, and I agree with you with that. People spending more time on that space, because it is a crazy transition that you really, there's not a lot of preparation for, it just kind of thrown into it, and it really is crazy. But no, I love that. I love that you're doing that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. No. So, Kylie, where is the best way for people to follow you on social media? That way they can keep up with everything that you're doing and kind of be notified when your website is up and everything else that you're working on.
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I actually don't have a social media presence.
No.
I know. My one friend was like, we need to get you something on social media, like something happening, because I've kind of joked about being the unplugged yogi, especially with this move that we made down to Costa Rica. I feel so like offline, off the grid.
Right.
But I can see that shifting for me as I start to launch some new things. But for now, my PlantBasedPregnancy.com, you can actually enter your email address for updates when it's available. And I can also be found at Mastering Diabetes. So I would say right now the best place is masteringdiabetes.org. And we have a phenomenal team there. And if anybody's interested in hearing more or working with me, they can get you in touch with me through Mastering Diabetes.
Perfect. And I'm also going to peer pressure Kylie to make an Instagram account this week. So
okay.
I'll let you guys know what that is. No.
Okay. Thank you.
But no, I think you could reach a whole lot more, especially a whole lot more people that are either considering pregnancy or already pregnant. Like you could reach so many people that are looking for it. So it'd be super beneficial to do that, but no pressure, but kind of.
I know, right? Yeah, it's been on like sort of the back burner thing. Like that whole idea of like launching is very, there's a lot around that. So
I gotcha.
But yes, it's definitely, I hear you. So thank you. I will definitely look into getting that started, because I agree. I think, that would be awesome to connect with more people and to be able to, just share what I'm doing. That's sort of the point. I would love for people to have access to this information. So,
definitely.
So if anybody's ever been starting out and not sure where to go, like if you have any information, like send it my way.
Perfect. No, I'm excited for you, Kylie. And just closing question that I ask every guest. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway through your whole wellness journey. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
I would say, listen to your body. Listen to your body and trust what it's saying to you, and get into that. How do you feel as you're, navigating whatever you're doing? If you're changing your diet, your body is so intuitive and it has so many answers for you. And so just listen and tune in and see what comes up.
Awesome. No, that's perfect, Kylie. I love that. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you, and I can't wait to see all of the work that you put out. And I'll definitely share it all on my end as well, because I just think it's super important as well. So just thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Kylie. She's doing so much positive work. So be sure to give her a follow on her Instagram page once she gets that created. She's working on it now. But you can keep up with her also on the Mastering Diabetes platforms. So you can give them a follow on social media and check out their site to learn more about her as well. But you can find those links in the show notes. You can also find them on my website as well at drkaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Kylie's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Kylie, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to check out patreon.com/Dr. Casey Johnson to learn more about how you can support the Unlock Wellness podcast. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.